Recently, Italian prosecutors have officially launched investigations into several top-tier tycoons. These individuals are accused of joining tour groups that traveled to war zones to hunt, solely to indulge in the thrill of firing at will and randomly killing civilians. Even more appalling, some were reportedly willing to pay extra for the privilege of shooting children. If these inhumane acts are proven true, they are horrifying beyond words. After prosecutors formally accepted the case and began tracing those involved, the entire world was stunned. According to reports from Italian media, these events occurred during the Yugoslav wars, which spanned from the 1990s to the early 2000s. In 1992, with the dissolution of Yugoslavia, the region descended into chaos as ethnic tensions, territorial disputes, and historical grievances all erupted simultaneously. The situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina was particularly complex. Three groups of people of different ethnicities and faiths lived intermingled. One group sought independence, another wanted to join Serbia, and a third hoped to join Croatia. After the pro-independence group declared the establishment of a state, the Bosnian Serb forces, who wished to unite with Serbia, quickly armed themselves, seized the high ground, blocked roads, and surrounded Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, on all sides. This was the Siege of Sarajevo, the most representative and one of the most brutal episodes of the Yugoslav wars, lasting from 1992 to 1996. The aim was to force the Bosnian government into submission through prolonged encirclement. Sarajevo was, geographically, a place almost perfectly suited for a siege, surrounded by mountains on all sides, with the city itself lying in a basin. This meant that those inside the city found it nearly impossible to launch counterattacks uphill or even pose a meaningful threat, while the snipers and artillery positioned on the surrounding high ground could look down on the city as if it were a shooting range, striking the urban area at any moment. According to reports from multiple sources, 11,541 civilians were killed during the approximately 1,425 days of the siege, including 1,601 children. Other investigations indicate that the total number of deaths during the siege was around 18,888. At that time, the United Nations followed a policy of providing aid without intervention, allowing only neutral humanitarian assistance. It was under these circumstances that rumors of a grotesquely twisted black market trade began to circulate, a chilling claim that some armed groups allegedly offered wealthy foreign clients a special experience. They would take them up to positions on the hillsides, provide rifles, spotting scopes, and even help them select targets. And these so-called targets were nothing more than ordinary civilians, people running through the streets, fetching water, or waiting in line to buy bread. More than 30 years ago, Italy's Corriere della Sera reported on these so-called Sarajevo hunting tours, but at the time, the reporting lacked solid evidence. In 2022, after Slovenian director Panic released the documentary Sarajevo Safari, public attention returned to the issue. Milan-based journalist Cavazzoni began investigating after watching the documentary, eventually uncovering detailed evidence. This February, he submitted his findings to Italian prosecutors, a 17-page dossier, along with a report from the former mayor of Sarajevo, urging Italian authorities to launch a public investigation. Then, in November of this year, Italy finally brought public charges against these inhumane elites. According to reports, the individuals involved in the killings came from several countries, including the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Italy. Most of them were firearms enthusiasts or members of far-right groups. Nearly all were ultra-wealthy, yet they derived pleasure from killing, traveling deliberately to a war zone for entertainment. They reportedly paid the equivalent of 80,000 to 100,000 euros for their opportunity to hunt civilians, bribing the forces besieging Sarajevo and disguising themselves as humanitarian workers to shoot unarmed people. These individuals would fly from Italy to Belgrade on weekends, then be transported to the hills surrounding Sarajevo, where they set up sniper rifles and aimed down into the city. At the time, there was a stretch of road in Sarajevo known as Sniper Alley. Once a bustling main artery connecting the city center and the airport, it became one of the most dangerous places due to the presence of snipers. Every day, innocent people who ventured out to buy daily necessities were shot down, Some were simply going out to fetch a bucket of water, others were trying to run across the street to buy a piece of bread. Even running children were treated as scenery or targets. Gun enthusiasts might normally go to shooting ranges or travel to Africa for hunting, but on the so-called Sarajevo hunting tours, they shot pedestrians at random, as if playing a game, including children. Every human life had its own grotesque price tag. According to the journalist, these killings were paid for, children cost the most, next came men, preferably men in uniform or armed personnel, then women, and lastly the elderly, who could even be killed for free. Reports suggest that this so-called tourist shooting likely occurred mainly in the mid-period of the conflict, for example, after 1993. Another witness from the Bosnian intelligence services stated that they learned of the matter during the interrogation of a Serbian militia member. This militiaman confirmed the existence of these hunting activities and said that he had been with 5 of the participants. 3 of the 5 were Italians, and another claimed to be from Milan. He told me that the Bosnian intelligence services had warned that at least 5 Italians were operating on the hills around Sarajevo, and that they had been sent there to fire on civilians. They then forwarded this information to Italy. A few months later, they received a response from the Italian side: "We have stopped this behavior. There will be no more hunting activities." 2 or 3 months after that, these so-called hunting trips ceased. Looking back now, there may have been as many as around 100 of these bloodthirsty war tourists. I hope they can at least identify 1 or 2 of them, maybe even 10, the journalist said. According to reports, Italian prosecutors have already compiled a witness list and are in the process of identifying those involved, including a businessman from the Turin area. These wealthy individuals believed that during the Siege of Sarajevo, with no unified law enforcement, no functioning government, and various armed groups controlling different positions around the city, no traceable evidence would remain, and it would be nearly impossible to determine which gun fired which bullet. However, every action ultimately leaves evidence behind. Crimes against humanity have no statute of limitations. Even decades later, perpetrators can still be prosecuted. If the final investigation confirms these events, one can only hope that those involved will pay the price for their crimes.